Welcome to In The Boardroom. I'm David Zidel, and today we're in conversation with Ronen Aires. So welcome to the Boardroom.
Welcome to the village. I think it's an unbelievable opportunity to get some great insight from somebody who's been there, done that. And these sessions are always about learning from others. And I think we've got quite a lot to learn from Ronen. You can see he's the marketing guy busy taking pictures as he's been introduced. So that's fantastic. There's a huge difference between him and myself. I've got a jersey on, he's in a t-shirt. He obviously knows about the air conditioning, which I don't, so I might undo this after a while.
I was in 8-degree water an hour ago, so this is warm.
And that 8-degree water actually leads to a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, and that's high performance teams. So besides just the history of what Ronen's been through, he's actually studied in America on high performance teams, and I'm hoping that today's session is going to bring a lot of that out and some of the lessons that we can learn from that for all of us. Ronen, I don't know if you know, grew up in Springs. Quite a few people.
Anyone else from the East End? Amen.
A few successful people came from that side of town. There was involved in a family business and kind of for 3 years ran the business, but he was involved in the business since the age of 10, I think you said, or even younger.
Officially, it was younger, but you can't actually say that these days.
These days.
Labor. I work for free.
But if you employ yourself, then it's a child labor. Yeah. And got a huge amount of knowledge from a family business. It's a toy business. Again, I think you said your sister and brother-in-law are involved in.
Yeah.
And share some of the lessons from that as well. But just to start off, if you can just share a little bit about yourself. I know one of the funniest things when I was speaking to Ronen, one of the funniest things he said was that at university he did accounting and psychology, which is a strange combination. And he said he did psychology to try and understand why the hell he's doing accounting. So maybe if you can just share with us a little bit of your history of the family, kind of, is entrepreneurship built? Is it innate? And then we'll lead into high performance teams. And obviously, how did you develop Student Village? But just a little bit of your history starting off.
Okay, so I'm a little ADD, so you can't ask 3 questions. I think I'm going to remember. So we'll start with the first. Firstly, I want to welcome everyone to the village. I'm a 3rd generation immigrant. So just like many of you, the story of my family was somewhere between Russia, Lithuania, and the borders were porous. Both my grandparents came out from those areas. They didn't come out married. They came out to South Africa. At that time, I think it was in the 30s, those that made it got to Springs and Rustenburg and Zimbabwe and all Zambia and all other places. Those that didn't died. So the story of my tree is probably similar to many of yours, is it either happens or it got cut off. And so I found myself living, you definitely didn't, but did anyone grow up watching the series The Wonder Years? Who watched it? It gives away a bit of a generation vibe, but if you grew up, my kind of world was like Fred Savage. So if you picture like roaming the neighborhood on your bike and kind of growing up I was a child of the 80s, my grandparents, so my grandfather started the business. His first language after speaking Yiddish was Funnigaloo. So he felt that was a lot more helpful than learning English. Then he learned that he's not going to find a wife unless he learns English. And then he met my grand, who was from Clarksville. And they lived this beautiful, happy life in Springs. And Springs at the time was a vibrant town. It was the heart of the gold mining industry in the world. I don't know if you know that. I mean, that was the Mecca. So that was where the opportunity was. No worries. And and my grandfather slept in his shop that he created, and he was selling bicycles and toys to the mines. And then my father got drafted in. Then he met my mother at a soldier's camp. They got married, and I'm the middle pip. And I basically have every single psychological issue of a middle pip I have chronically. So I feel like I brought myself up. I feel like I didn't get enough love as a kid. I'm hugely independent, and that is a lot of the seat of my own psychosis. And so I had on the one side the most idyllic childhood, very middle class. I don't think for the Jews that are in the room, there were about 800 families in Springs. So it wasn't small at the time, and vibrant. Most amazing childhoods. We used to bus to Benoni to school, and then when that school closed, then I boarded at King David. But the story of my life, growing up in a multi-generational business, I was groomed literally from my bris. I was being groomed as the next Jedi for this business that was selling toys and bicycles, mainly to the mines and other shops in that area. And I knew from an early age, or from the earliest age, that I could get a sense of myself that this wasn't my gig. I don't know if you've ever felt like I don't belong here. It makes sense on paper, but this isn't me. I don't know if you've ever been in that kind of situation. So I found myself literally from the age of, since I could remember, thinking that this makes sense. I've been drafted in every weekend, every school holiday, every free time. I was brought in to work in the shop with my grandfather and my parents, and my dad and my grandfather. So there was a distance where they used to sit. So from here to the kitchen, and they used to scream at each other the whole day. So that brought up my next psychological issue, is my avoidance of conflict and screaming. So I can't do screaming, and I can't do conflict in that sense. And this was like full-on frontal. This was like the vocal version of EFC fighting. And I kind of grew up in this, being brought up in this business, and two things were fundamentally wrong for me. One is I felt spiritually on another mission, and I felt like I'm here in this world to do something and to make an impact. And I kept on thinking, how am I going to make an impact through selling toys? Yes, it makes kids happy, but it doesn't. There was nothing in it for me that was speaking to my soul. So that was the first one. Second one was like I had some radical ideas on if I was to be in there. And I could see how my grandfather and father used to fight about the most ridiculous things, and how am I going to pass all this change in this multi-generational business. So I only learned like years later, with the help of a bit of plant medicine, that subconsciously my struggles as a misunderstood youth with a bit of a rebellious nature, that Student Village was created. And what Student Village is we help large companies understand and engage with the misunderstood, with youth. So the very struggle that I had being misunderstood and being in the wrong place led me to eventually creating a business that helps the misunderstood have a voice and to provide opportunities for them. And so just as a little welcome, you can get a sense of this space. And I just want to tell you a quick story behind the space before we get to question 2 and 3. Is this space, when we could finally we first started in a bedroom, and it was me and Jason Glick in Glenwood Lodge, Glen Hazel. So it was his bedroom. When we first started it, it was still in the dial-up era, and then we coerced two friends to join. We had one dial-up line, which linked to the fax line. We had one email box for 4 of us, and one telephone line, which his father was paying for all of this. And for the first 6 months, none of us could do anything concurrently. So this was the year 2001.
So I just want to know, when you said you started off this business, what was the thought process? What were you aiming to do? And were you aiming to make money? Was that the purpose, or was it just trying to be understood yourself and getting those like you to be understood?
So I'm just going to lay it out straight. I don't know how to speak any other way. So my first move was avoidance. Obviously, that's my personality. I finished my degree at Wits. I was bulleted by every single graduate program that came to Wits to offer opportunities. I was very involved in community organizations while I was a student. So I had a lifelong internship in the family business. Then I plowed myself into the start of the CSO. I was in the first intake, and by the time I was 18, I was on the board of the CSO and other organizations. I spent more time in community than at varsity. So I knew my marks were average, not representing my aptitude, but certainly my effort. And I knew, having been bulleted I had 2 forces: avoid the family business and find a place to graft. Had no clue what I wanted to do, but I didn't want to be in the family business. I had no other opportunities, so I thought what would be the best thing to do would be a preemptive strike. And so I found a few people that I knew in recruitment, and coming from the East Rand, what's the biggest success story we knew from the East Rand? Not to put pressure on you. Investing. And so I thought, who could I co-opt to get in? So now I'm in my final year BCom. Every door had closed, so I wasn't going to work at Unilever, Colgate, or any of these companies with great grad programs. I wanted to avoid the family business, and so I thought, I'm going to make a move. So I managed to get an interview. This is actually quite a funny story. I was interviewed when they were still in Fox Street, and a friend of mine's father, my oldest friend from Benoni, used to run the canteen and investing. And when Chris Hani was assassinated, there were stayaways, and we were like teenagers, and we were brought in to the canteen to wash dishes. And so now, fast forward years later, as I'm about to finish my degree, I have the standard 6 or 7 interviews at Investec for a nothing position. So they said, you're going to have to start at the bottom. I said, the bottom? I've washed your fucking dishes. And so they said, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? I couldn't even see, I didn't even know where I'd be next week. But I said, just give me a desk and let me show you my potential. This is what I've done in my volunteer capacity. And so I'm going to keep on circling back to this point, because upon reflection, while Student Village has done amazing stuff, like truly amazing stuff, when I reflect on my life, a lot of the impact that I've had on the world is through nonprofit work. A lot of my learnings, a lot of my impacts. And when you ask the question around money, I'm actually not driven by money. I'm driven by impact. So one of the things that I find is such an elusive thing is this notion of success. Always chasing success. But when you wake up feeling like a success, success is so elusive and it's so fluid, and you might get a feel of it and then it's poof, it's gone. So for me, impact is what makes a difference, and that's been my mission. So I basically get to Investec, and I learned very quickly the system. They had this flat system. They were quite revolutionary. Everyone looks the same. Everyone dresses the same. And basically, I worked out, like literally, I was given a position which is equivalent to, if you were on a kibbutz, to shoveling shit in the cow shed. Like, I was in the refit. I was literally like, but no one knew the difference because you all dressed the same and looked the same. So I walked around like I owned the place. And so within 3 years, I had gone to one of the directors and said, they're missing this opportunity. I was in the asset management division of promoting their funds, which were very successful, to staff. So I said, great idea, go do it. And in that, I got access to all the top people. And I used to go make appointments with them. I knew nothing. But what I have with me is this ability to connect with people and to establish a sense of trust very quickly. And so I just became like the trusted guy. I was 20, but I had all the directors of Investec phoning me for investment advice and where they should put their money and which funds and stuff like that. And all I do is I take their call, take down their requirements, and then I go phone the portfolio managers behind the scenes and say, I've got 10 bars, what do I do with it? But eventually, and within a year, I became the fixer in the unit trust division, which had exploded and was so dysfunctional that I was helping people just sort out the mess internally and helping people. But after about 3 years, I found myself looking left and right and thinking, these aren't my people. Like, I don't know if you've ever had that kind of feeling. You land yourself, you kind of come up for air, you look left and right. And I felt like I was literally in an asylum in suits. Like, I actually thought I was going mad. Like, the thought and the notion that this is normal and this is going to be the rest of my life. And when you're in these kind of organizations, and people do brilliantly, I'm not knocking it. The longer you stay in, the closer your risks get, and then they get almost like Siamese twins, right? And so I realized at the age of 25 that I was really ambitious in the crisis side of my life. So I was already in my midlife at 25. and it just so happened, I don't know if some of us were alive in the year 2000. I spoke yesterday at Vega and I said, who was alive in 2000? And literally 98% of the class was born in the year. So in 2000, if you remember the world, I don't know, it's hard to remember the world. So the first big thing that was happening in 1999 was that there was the Y2K bug. The world was coming to an end, and every computer that every company or person owned was about to either just shut down, blow up, or whatever. The world was coming to an end, and all the consulting companies made millions of money advising on how to deal with the end of the world, which never came, right? It just so happened that an old camp friend of mine, Jason Glick, was leading the Investec project on the Y2K. He was at a consulting company, he was an electrical engineer, and we used to sit in the canteen and we used to swap our tales of misery on how did we sell our souls and land up in suits in the asylum and thinking, how do we get out of this place? And so it really, in those chats, it really came to us that we loved being students. we loved that time. And we came from reasonable, informed backgrounds. Like we, and that's just another point. Like if you take all your Shabbos nights and you thread them together, if you come from a home that has dinner together and you think of the conversations that you have over time, that's privilege. That's like kind of information that gets passed down to the generation. Some of it dysfunctional, some of it you want to vomit, but some of it has gems that you just take on that just kind of put you ahead of the curve. And so we both had that, but we were both clueless what we wanted to do with our future. And so what we realized, if we came from a reasonably privileged information transfer background, but we still didn't know what we wanted to do with our lives, then surely millions of others don't know that too. And so what we decided to do was, why don't we create a student community that connects each other, because we felt that as students misunderstood that together as a collective, very powerful, and that there's an opportunity once you put them together that they should be taken seriously. And then through corporates, they can offer both their products and services, their job opportunities, their bursaries, etc. Now, if I had asked you in the year 2000, or if I had asked you today with that same brief, how would you do that? Social media, you can name your platform. Don't use Facebook because you don't use it anymore, but pick your platform, boom, within a month, you're in. So rewind back a little bit, take the track back to 2000, and what did the world look like? Brick phones, not everyone had one, no Google, we had Netscape, we had Hotmail, there was no Twitter, there was nothing, no Facebook, nothing. So there was no way of doing it. Just so happened in his final year electrical engineering project, he had to do a website. And so that's how Student Village started, is we had no other way. We went, and this is actually another interesting story. So we were in our suits and we decided we need money. I had 33,000 Rand in my Provident Fund at Investec at the time. So that was my seed capital. And I don't know, Jason had something similar, but he definitely had more, but that was what I had. And we went to go speak to people, and people said, that's the most brilliant idea, brilliant idea, brilliant idea. But it just so happened at a parallel time, season one of the .com era was imploding. So went from .com, we'll throw millions at you, to 6 months later, .bomb, you guys are a joke. And I remember sitting with an angel investor, and he looked at us and he said, you guys are great. I invite you to my Shabbos table, but this idea is not going to work. It's absolute shit. That's what he told us. And so those kind of things, when you tell a rebel, like that just throws like nuclear fuel on, like, I'm going to show you. And so we ate peanut butter sandwiches in the morning, played garden cricket, and basically lunch and dinner was rejection. That was our diet for the first year. We would just get no. And if I had to have done it alone, I would have never got through. Also got engaged that year because I had the ultimatum, like it's 5 years. Now in 2001. And our whole idea at the time was to acquire, because universities at the time didn't have email addresses. So if you were a student, the university hadn't given you email addresses yet. So what we wanted to do, our smart idea, was we're going to be the email provider to universities. We'll give it for free as long as it plugs into our website. And then we've wholesale acquired thousands of chunks of users. And this, thought it was genius. The only thing that we didn't factor in is dealing with the university is like dealing with the municipality. So their fast turnaround time is about 3 years. And we managed to somehow sign up some of the privates and some of, we landed 2 big deals, Tux and UCT. And we thought, now just keep in the background. No one's investing in us. We have our pension funds. Our parents were helping us with the stationery and phone lines and stuff like that for 6 months. We had 0 income. And we had the idea of this website, of which I knew nothing about. And when I went to Vega yesterday, I was telling them, when I realized that I said yes to, we're starting this marketing company, I realized I don't know anything about marketing besides what I might naturally know about marketing. So I went to night school at Vega just to kind of deal with the imposter syndrome, that how can I go speak to brands that I actually know nothing about? But we were confident. We were 25 and 26.
Can I just stop you there for a second? So I just want to unpack the business model.
Yeah.
So in your mind, the model was gaining the addresses, gaining contact to the audience, which these companies would.
Yeah. So what we knew is we needed to build up this base so that we can be taken seriously and go knock on all the doors of the advertisers, so that they would give us money. Students wouldn't be paying anything. Until this day, we haven't worked out how to earn a bean from a student. So everything has been corporate driven. So what would happen is we would speak to universities during the day. We would go meet them and try to sell this idea. We landed 2 big fish. And when I say big fish, it's a base of 60,000 and 40,000. And it's like you start on day 1 with 100,000 names. That's proper. And so now we start to get to work with the website. And now at the same time, so you feel like you're like proper charlatans because you have nothing but a lot of promise. Like, so we're trying to nail down the deals, and it was Tuckies and UCT. And at the same time, we had to go now get money for this. So what we did is we got storyboards. So physical boards on paper, and we designed. So if we were going to see company X, we would get their logos put on these storyboards, and we'd go literally like smosers to show them what they're going to look like in 3 months' time. And that's when our first luck happened. And like we must have knocked on 100 doors, 100 no's. And basically we got to Nedbank. And Nedbank literally the week before in their strategy had decided they're very weak in youth and they wanted to go online. And in the year 2001, online meant like just being a presence online is a tick box. So no one even had websites. So it just so happened we walked into this meeting and we used to sell ourselves as we left Investec for this great idea. That was our we didn't have anything we had nothing but like that. And at that time, people, you just mentioned Investec and they were, so that was our pitch. We think this is such a good idea, and that's why we left our jobs. And we showed them the storyboard, and then Nedbank, they just said, you guys have just walked in at the right place at the right time. And then we got a sense of actually the budget they could throw at us. We were like asking like for 20 and 30 grand a month and stuff like that. And somehow we worked out in the conversation that they actually had a lot more to give. So then we just went back to Zidel. We just thought, what could we do for these guys? We started coming up, they sponsor the Nedbank Golf Challenge. We'll do student golf days. And we think they should be doing X, Y, and Z. So we just came up with a list of things. We had zero clue on how to make it happen. But we were confident enough, if they said yes, we'll find a way. And they accepted the whole plan. So that deal was 750K, and that got us out the starting blocks. That was our seed capital. that was our main client. And then we had to go launch the brand. So that paid for the website. That's how much things cost in those days, content management system. Then we co-opted friends, family, and experts that we knew to be like the new experts on the site. And then disaster struck when our plan to wholesale acquire student names as we signed Nedbank, and now we go to Tuckies, and we're doing the legal agreement with them. They said, fantastic, we agree with it, but just so you know, here are our partners, and one of their partners is ABSA. I think, is this a showstopper? But listen, we've got Nedbank on the site. People will only see Nedbank when they click through, and no. Showstopper. UCT had Standard Bank, showstopper. So literally screwed. So we have 750K and 0 audience. So basically what we did from there is to screw that. We're now going to go and build the audience ourselves. So we'll go direct to market. We're not going to. And so we didn't have the money yet. So now we had to make it happen. So we started selling sponsorship on our promotional material. We didn't have posters, flyers. In those days, those were your weapons. Posters, flyers, and maybe SMS. And so what we decided to do was sell sponsorship on all our promotional material. We went around the country, got a base going, which suddenly just took fire. And then we decided if we really want to grow the base, at the time, I don't know if you remember, but there were some sites like SMSs you had to pay for, and that there was no WhatsApp, there was no BBM or stuff like that. And so we thought we're going to offer free SMS. So we basically sold some sponsorship. So at the last, there'd be, instead of 140 characters, 160, there'd be 20 less, and we sell the message. And with that, we grew our base it went from 2,000 to 50,000 within a few months. And then suddenly it was happening. Then we couldn't afford the SMSs, so we had to find another way of making it happen. So I'm going to pause there because that's how we started, but that's not really who we are today. So we've grown.
Well, so just to unpack again. So you started with a business model and the whole basis, and then you lucked up with a client, and then
the model crashed.
That model crashed completely,
yeah.
And you had to change it, and you found a way of getting through it. And I think that's a lesson of entrepreneurship, if anything.
Yeah.
And then, so take us maybe a little bit more advanced through kind of where it is now, but then also what have you done in the high performance side of kind of why did you decide that you need high performance when you're clearly doing a lot of things right, and what are the lessons that you learned and that we can learn from them?
Yeah. So where to start? So where have we got to in 22 years? And when you introduce me as been there and done that, I feel like I've been there and I'm here today, and there's a lot of stuff in between. And so really what we've become in the last 20 years is we realized very early that model of online advertising at the time was so ahead of its time. Not that we were geniuses, we were just too soon. So we knew, so now it's 2001, I'm freshly engaged. My ex-wife was the breadwinner, and she was doing her community service in physio. And if you remember where you were on the day of 9/11, 2001, remember that day? So now we had been going the whole year on fumes. We hadn't earned a cent for ourselves. We watched the planes go through the Twin Towers and said, okay, so now it's really the end of the world. Let's pay ourselves a salary. And we gave each other $5,000. And we felt so guilty for that day. We thought, but it's the end of the world. You know? We can't afford it, but let's pay it. It's tax-free $5,000. But that's actually what got us going to say, we're doing online advertising at the moment, and we're doing some golf days. They happen to be legendary, and we're doing whatever for Nedbank. But that wasn't a business yet. Like if we were going to have kids, and if they were to go to private schools, and if we wanted to give them the life that we want them to lead, this ain't the road. This is either too soon or it's not the road. And so we started thinking, what else could we do? We loved this world of being students, and we loved what I learned. Two things from Investec was be a specialist. So be the number 1, 2, or 3 in whatever you choose to do. So, and the second thing was around culture. And so what was funny is Fetcher actually went down at the time when we started, and we bought actually a lot of the furniture on auction for our first offices. And so what I actually learned over time is that you're informed by your negative experiences as much as your positive. So while some of the Investec stuff was hugely positive and some hugely nauseating, it informs you what you don't want. So the way I'm dressed today, which my team would say is actually semi-formal. Yeah, this is, I wanted to feel like me. I wanted to feel like I don't want to dress up for anyone. If anyone wants me, they want for what's between here, not my dress sense. So that was the first thing that informed me. And then culture informed me. And then, so when we looked at, okay, what else can we do? We love being students. We love this niche. And that was the word I learned in Investec, be the niche. And then we decided, okay, what else could we do? So we just went to companies and just started saying, all right, you want to get to this market. What do you want to do? You want to sell more stuff? You want to promote your opportunities? You want to do this? Then we started learning that if you had media options, that's the easiest sell in the world, because at the time there wasn't really online media. So you went to an agency or a media planner and you said, I've got X, Y, and Z. This is how much it costs per month. Are you in or you're out? It's a very binary conversation. So we actually bought one of our competitors who had student media, and that took us from being a website to being a serious player. Then we started offering activations, and I should have actually bought it, but I've kept it in my drawer. I worked this one client for about, I don't know in your businesses, how long it takes to land a client. But we were promised literally for about 9 months that a deal with Cell C was landing today. Imagine being told today for 9 months the deal's landing. And we're running out of money. And literally 3 days before this campaign started, we have zero idea on how to actually roll out this campaign, but we had the confidence. And this was about in year 3. I used to go camp at the Cell C office and wait for the slippery salmon client who was always returning my call, that never. And for days, I'd say, I'm just waiting in reception for you. Just let me know when you're ready. I'll come fetch the signed contract. And one day it happened. And it happened to be 3 days before this national rollout. And that's where things really changed for us. And I actually photostated, we got a check. Now, the issue was also at that time that checks took 3 or 4 days or up to a week to clear. And we had to pay for this campaign that was starting in 3 days' time. And so that took us into the activation business. And that was the first time we got a check for over R1 million. And that's what changed the trajectory. And in truth, that's what changed the internal trajectory, that we actually believed we were worth it. And that changed us from saying, okay, we could do this, then we can start doing all other things. So we started coming up with all these different things like brand ambassadors and influencers, all those kind of things before they became a thing. The other cool story was in our first few years, my cousin came she was from San Francisco. She was at UCLA. I sat her down and I said, show me every single website you go to. And so show me this one and that one, nothing interesting. And then she came across this thing called Facebook. And at the time, it was closed to US students. I said, geez, this is so interesting. This is everything we've dreamed of and had no clue how to do. I said, do me a favor. Leave me your login details. Just want to check it out for a while. And we basically got our development company to mimic social media. And so we were one of the first to introduce social media online for students. And that's what saved us. When Facebook opened up to the world, that's what saved us from being taken out. So that was some muzzle that came our way. The other things worth looking at is there were a couple of hard lessons we learned along the way. Is that being in the services business, so two things. One, and we still haven't cracked it totally, is we're a project-based business. So our clients sign up for either a month or up to a year, but we start every year not knowing how our year is going to be. We have a corporate shareholder, and this week, they said, send us your cash flow forecast for the rest of the year. I don't know what to do next month. And so we still live with this angst of every month or every few months. We don't know what we're going to do. But what happened in 2008 was there was a financial crisis. And we deal with multinationals like Unilever at that time, Brandhouse, which is Diageo, and all these companies. And literally, and I'm going to get to the high performance. I promise you, there's 2 dots to join. There's 2 crisis points, and out of crises you learn a lot. No one chooses crisis. I wish I could learn things not in crisis. So the first massive crisis that happened for us was in 2008. We're a marketing company, and there was a financial crisis, right, in the world. Why should we be affected? This is me feeling like the wounded child again. That's unfair. We didn't do anything. But what we learned very quickly, that literally, if anyone sneezes, they could sneeze in Kuala Lumpur and we'll be affected. The reason is we deal with multinationals, or we deal with large companies that if any shockwave happens, they basically chop their marketing budgets. That's the first place to save money, and we're deemed a luxury in many marketing purses. So they see what can they chop first, and it's usually our head comes off first. And in 2008, some of our multinationals just started canceling contracts. And so literally we had like a 30-40% dip immediately off the bat. And that for us created a massive cash flow issue. So we're funded, like, here's the thing. We're a service-based business. We don't have any assets, and we can't even get an overdraft. So I could get more credit on my personal credit card than we can get on. And the business at this stage was we're bringing millions. But because we had no assets, I couldn't get a working capital facility from any bank. Not even a loan shark would give us. I mean, that's how crazy things were. So what we decided after the 2008 crisis was that we were going to sell a portion of the company to a shareholder that would hopefully add value and give us a working capital facility. The former didn't happen. It was disastrous. The latter happened. Got a working capital facility, and eventually we bought this building as an asset that we could use in those times. So actually getting a line of capital was good. In the end, we actually swapped parents, did another deal, and we partnered with a really great company called Smolin. They kept our facility in place until COVID, and they changed their mind, and we had to redo things. And literally, we only recently sold our building, which actually will reverse our cash flow kind of dependency. So here's two things before we get to high performance. One is what has been the most disastrous day of your business life? You don't have to share, but just go there. Did you see it coming? Was it catastrophic? Would you redo things differently? What happened? Think in your mind and how you felt. So soon after 2008, we didn't have a facility yet. We get a call from our bookkeeper. This is now Erev Yom Kippur. For those that aren't Jewish, it's the night before our fast day. It's like the big night. You're fully focused on that day. You want to finish by lunchtime, and you're preparing for a fast. It's one of the holiest days of the year. Get a call from our bookkeeper that morning. Have you had a look at our bank account? And I check every day, still do. I said, no. I said, best you have a look. Go into our bank account. And the most radical thing that happened, it just said 0.00. And I knew the balance the day before was a few million. Just so happened, Yom Kippur was just before payday, just before month end, just before post-crisis. I've learned how to deal with creditors in terms of crisis. And the best way I've learned to say is, we are going to pay you, just not this week. We're definitely going to pay you as soon as we can. But now there's 0.0, and there's just a pending, it just says pending debit. No explanation. I phone the bank and say what's happening. And they go back, they look in the back end, and it's SARS. And now we are fully above the line. We pay everything every month as we should. We're up to date, but we have no money now. And so, Erev Yom Kippur, I get my accountants, say, like, get hold of SARS and let's go there. We go there, and now literally my stress is through the roof. And we find a meeting with people, and we sit down there, and there's an auntie there who's like salivating. Two of us, crapping myself, never been to SARS, and there's an auntie with a file this thick on us, and she cannot wait to sink her teeth into us. Literally, like I thought, I'm going to jail that night. And she starts going through it and through it and through it, showing us how we haven't been paying tax. But when we bought that other student business, we created a new entity called Student Village. Our old entity was called The Student Village. Big mistake. Never do that. It throws out the authorities. So now we stop paying tax in The Student Village and pay tax in Student Village. And so they had this whole file building in The Student Village. And when we tried to show them that it's the exact same amounts that you're asking for are in this entity. And then they agreed. And then it took them 6 months to reverse it. And so for 6 months, we had to learn how to use our debtors and creditors as our funding mechanisms until we found our new shareholder, which gave us breathing room. And so the drama continued. Fast forward to answer the question is, after probably 18 years of exposure to this, I actually found myself having some form of personal crisis. I've always been a spiritual seeker. always been chasing meaning and impact. I just felt so tired and so like worn out from this grind. So I don't know how long you've been in your business. I don't know how long, like, have you changed? Have you stayed in a business like for that long? I never planned for this to be my lifetime gig. And we had offers along the way, and should I have taken it? Shouldn't I have taken it? But basically, I found myself, I was in Barcelona. I was a global leader for an entrepreneurs organization. I was running a workshop. I was running a global program in Barcelona, thinking, this is amazing. Get to leave things at home. Things are busy. I'm doing this work that I really love. And I've got a phone call from our oldest client, Edbank, to say, what did your team do? And we had a technical pitch just to keep the business. We didn't have to come up with any new ideas. We didn't have to do anything special. But the team scored an own goal, and we didn't even know the importance of this pitch. And just said, we can't give you the business. Boom, 30% of the business gone. Came back, our second biggest client within a week said, listen, you've done nothing wrong, but we cannot spend, we're going to spend a fraction with you. So we knew we were going into the business probably 50% down for next year. And that was like a trigger. That lit the fuse for a total implosion in me. So I went from feeling top of the world, but burnt out, to seriously frazzled and in a fetal position, not knowing what to do. And I phoned a mentor of mine who had done a lot of work in the community space. She was my psych lecturer in my first year, and she's a retired trauma therapist. So she's perfectly skilled to deal with my kind of psychosis. And I said to her, Auntie Mill, what should I do? I don't know what to do today. And, you know, in my drop-down box of options in the morning, I don't feel like getting out of bed. I don't want to. I'm a snoozer. Like, I like getting in bed. I don't not like doing stuff in the day, but I'm never in a rush to get out. So I have to hack my system and my mind to get going. Quitting is not in my drop-down box. I don't know how to quit. But that morning, I didn't want to quit. I just didn't want to do anything. I don't know if you've ever woken up with that. Like, it's beyond math. It's the 100x of math. And I phoned her, I said, give me one line. Just tell me what to do today. And she said, I've been watching what you do. You run retreats with entrepreneurs in the entrepreneurs organization. You're an ultra trail athlete and you do multi-day stage races, and you're running businesses. You've been on presidential task teams for entrepreneurship. You've won awards and all those kind of stuff. And on that day, all of that was nonsense to me. Like, that was all superficial crap. I felt the lowest I've ever felt. And actually, when I thought of this place, I felt like a prisoner in my own asylum. But the worst part is I created this. I can't blame anyone. This was my doing. I felt like I was now, like I had put myself in solitary confinement and I did not see the way out. So what did Auntie Merle say to me? She said, look, I've been begging you for months to read this book. And I don't know if you've been in a low place. Like, think of your lowest place. Someone says, read a book. Said, well, sorry. Just help me through today. I'm not in book reading mode. You know what she said? Read the fucking book. And she's in her 70s. And so what was the book? The book is called Stealing Fire. And really what it is, it's written by two of the top people in human performance in the US. And in 2016, it was a bestseller. And really, the concept of stealing fire is how can we transcend our stress, our anxiety, and all our stuff that holds us down so that we can ascend in consciousness, so that we can pluck or steal fire and inspiration from the gods. And so, how, our resident Sadiq. So how do you transcend all your stuff so that you can feel connected to something bigger than yourself? How can you feel your true nature? And how can you get the inspiration and connection that you need? So this was compelling. It was the end of the year. I thought, okay, I'll buy the book. Went to Plet, read half the book. In between, Merle had persuaded me to say, there are many different courses they run online. She's done some of them. They're brilliant. You should do it. But today is the last day. They're recruiting for their first in-person training for 50 people from around the world. But this is Navy SEAL style training for 3 months. So they train the Navy SEALs in performance. They train the top executives at Google and all the Fortune 500s. Their manual is the manual. And so this, I had to remind Mel, you do realize I'm in a hole. You know, I'm still like saying, hi, I'm still down there. She said, if I was 30 years younger, I'd do it myself. Pay, it was a few $100s, pay it and secure your interview. Look, okay, just get off my back. I wasn't even on their mailing list. So now I have a holiday, I read half the book, it's lekker. Now I have the interview the day I come back. And I knew the only way for me to get onto this pinnacle course was really to connect and do what I know how to do best. It's just find an area of connection and establish trust. And so the author comes on, he said, where in South Africa you're from? I said, Joburg. He said, funny that, I was in Joburg last year. Thought, did a quick computation. You must have been here for Singularity University. He said, yes, were you there? I said, I couldn't, but I was running a retreat. And I knew this is my moment to either go or blow. And I said, it just so happens that I know the guys running Singularity. They're my friends from the East Rand. And I was running a retreat for leaders, and I needed a few materials that they had, and they weren't made from paper. They were mind-enhancing materials. And I asked my friends, do you have, because I think I'm going to run short on stock. And that changed the whole nature of the interview, which they said they spoke about what they got up to after the conference in Sabi Sabi. And 3 minutes later, he said the line that I needed to hear from Merle a few months before that was, can you get to California in 3 weeks' time? And that was the line that changed the rest of everything for me. So I arrived in California. They put me on a literal boot camp for 3 weeks before that. And I literally arrived in California, still half broken, and me and 49 other people at the top of the game, top athletes, extreme athletes, artists, coaches, doctors, everyone at the top of the game, and me. And it was a really interesting experience, and literally being taught by the best of the best to how to train your body and your brain to find your mind, because that's really the art of resilience and performance. And so I got schooled by the best, and really what it involved was psychology, neuroscience, pharmacology, and technology, and how do they all intersect so you can feel and operate at your best more often. Just so happened that pharmacology, there was an area in pharmacology that really called me, and that happened to be healing through psychedelics. And as part of the course, we had to do research to develop our own IP. And so everyone was doing these mindfulness experiments, and they were doing all these kind of sciencey things. I'm not a sciencey dude. So I thought, I'm going through transition. I'm trying to get to the bottom of me, my burnout, my story, and trying to develop my next. And this is pre-COVID. And I went back to the States, and I worked with this crazy Israeli woman who lives in California, who happened to be our lecturer on the course. So I got a hold of her before, and I said, will you help me facilitate my research? But I'm telling you now, N equals 1. It's only me. There's no other people in this experiment. And her only response was, Yalla. So I got onto a plane, and I went back to California, and we spent 2 days together in a really deep state, working with multiple materials. And out of that, I got to the bottom of why I am why I am the way I am. I got to the bottom of my childhood wounds that I couldn't find in seasons of therapy. Like for me, therapy relative to this kind of work was like snorkeling versus scuba diving. And I have a lot of respect for therapy, and I have a lot of friends who are therapists. But in this work, I actually got to the bottom of me. And when I came back, I was different. So my research was titled 40 Lifetimes of Therapy in 40 Hours. And I've actually never said it publicly, but my research was the top in the class. And from that, I didn't know what to do with it. So I came back and I started applying all the tools that it taught us. Now, what's interesting is today, when I say, have you heard of someone like Andrew Huberman? So Andrew Huberman is the top neuroscientist from Stanford, and he works with the Navy SEALs, and he has a few million followers, and he takes the science of performance and he makes it accessible. Just follow him, it's free. He was my teacher. 5 years ago, I came back, I said, Andrew Huberman taught me. No one knew who I was talking about. But everything I know about breath work, cold immersions, heat immersions, everything I know about that, he taught me. And so I came back armed with almost like a nuclear arsenal of human performance, but not really knowing what to do with it. So just like my research, N equals 1, I decided I'm going to get myself out of the hole using these tools. And so what happened since then was just a parallel kind of track that's happened since then is, while I'm still the elder in Student Village, there's a parallel side that has helped hundreds of people get to the bottom of their story and help to find their own true nature, whether it's through breath work, ice immersions, or cold immersions, whether it's through coaching or doing the deeper kind of work. And so if you wanted to understand that kind of functional enlightenment, and you speak about resilience, if you ask people, what is resilience? Resilience is like that, when you think of that Mike Tyson saying, everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face, right? So you are a product of your daily habits or lack of. But what happens in the world? You can go for a run in the morning, you can meditate for an hour, you can hop in the pool, you can talk to your chai latte and say positive affirmations. But if you arrive at work and get that massive roundhouse butcher's hook to the head and kick in the nuts by some news, and that wipes you off your seat, what good are you? What good was that? So those are your building blocks, and that's what gets you on your seat. You know, whether it's your spiritual practice, whether it's a physical practice, whether it's both, that gets you. Stevie's a rider. It gets you on your seat. That's putting your kit on. Your practices, your consistency of it gets you on it. But what I found and through the training is that your day, if you think of mountain biking and you're going down a mountain, is that you're hitting rocks, you're getting knocked out your saddle, and you're getting bumped all the time. And sometimes you get bumped straight off. You can't rely on just what you do or don't do in the morning. You have to know in the moment how to self-correct and stay on the saddle. So your bike might have the springs to take some of those shocks and those hits. When your clients say no, when the branding fucks out, when when you're facing Armageddon, when a staff member that you dearly love just suddenly betrays you, you can name the list of things that happen in the day, and that's before you tend to your family and the traffic and load shedding, all the things that are stacked up to make us feel crap. There are ways to hack through your body, through moving, to change the chemistry in your brain, because you cannot control your thoughts. You can only control your behavior. And your behavior is king. What you do will change the signals that go through to your brain, change the chemicals, and you can feel totally different. So remember, trauma and stress is only a reaction to a situation. Situation can be mild, but you can have a traumatic response. Or the situation can be catastrophic, and you can rise above it, or be totally traumatized. So your response to any given situation is your trauma or is your, or whatever you take on. And then it's stored in your emotional system. So a lot of what I do with leaders is help to get rid of it, get the broom to flush the stuff that you're holding. Because if I say to you, who's stressed in the room? Most of us, obviously. Where are you keeping your stress? If I was a physio or a massage therapist, I would just start here and go down here. And that's where we keep most of us, right? Who's worried about money? Most of us. Who's got lower back pain? Oh, wonder why that is. So there's a lot of things that are so connected. Our bodies and our nervous system are trauma gatherers, or you can disperse it. And unless you can transcend what I call your daily schmutz, all of it is true at those lower levels, but all of it can be transcended so you can find that place of inspiration, of clarity, of feeling the truest version of you, so that you can go out and do great things and make impact. Full stop. I'm going to leave it there.
So, time is running, and it's amazing. It's the lessons. Just two very quick questions.
Yeah.
Number one is, in your lowest point, you now have to travel to America and pay the American fees for a course. And I think a lot of people are faced often with things of, I really think I need it, but I can't afford it. Yeah. I'm not going to waste my money now when I need it the most. Yeah. What happened with you that you spent that money? That's number one. And number two is, please share with us 3 practical things that we can do without coming on your course, that we can do that will make us more high performing. Practical things, tools that potentially we could use today.
So let's deal with the money issue. So on the weekend, a dear friend of mine, who's a therapist, wanting to go to this amazing conference in the States, the same kind of, very concerned about the money, obviously the exchange rates, and how he's going to fund it. And so I said to him, are there people in your world that want you to succeed? He said, yes, obviously. He's a good guy. I said, have you asked them? I couldn't ask people for money. I said, but you're so skilled and you've got these services you can offer people. It's just a cash flow thing. So have you thought about, one is, there might be people on the other side that you can do work in dollars, but that could be a long shot. There you could get people behind you to prepay for stuff that you'll do when you get back. If you want to get there are so many different ways. What I had to learn in our cash flow, at the midst of our cash flow, I was 270 grand short. And I faced this point of like capitulation, and I was too proud to ask. But I was faced with the no choice. It was either SARS was coming or I needed to deal with this. And I just told a friend of mine the story. And he said, is that it? I said, yeah, I'm going down. He said, send me your bank details. You never know. So what I've seen, and you can relate it to the money issue on everything. And what I've seen even with friends who give 100 reasons why something won't happen. Our brain is wired that way to 10x catastrophe versus optimism. So optimism is so important in resilience. So that's lesson one, is if 10 things go right in the day or 9 things go right and 1 thing goes wrong, what do you go to bed with? The 1 thing and how you're fucking failing. And 10 things could have been amazing. So we're wired for catastrophe, and that's an evolutionary thing. So 1 is optimism, and 2 is through connection with others, other possibilities emerge. If we take it all on ourselves, we live between our ears, and when we're stressed, we actually can't think creatively and logically and straight. We're so pumped with cortisol that you actually can't come up with those magical ideas. So through communicating with others, as many as possible, there will be possibilities that will emerge that you can't think of right now. And I've seen it in every facet of life. So the one thing, definitely, as much as you can, and it's not this toxic positivity, they call it, like standing in front of the mirror and saying, I'm successful, I'm the best. It's not that. It's looking yourself straight in the morning, in the eyes, which is co-regulation. It is a bit of self-acceptance, high-fiving yourself, saying, I've got this. Because if your body is in stress, which it is most of the time, you can say whatever affirmation, come up with the most cheesiest thing ever. Your body won't believe it. You can say it for 10 years and it won't change. You have to change your state before any of that can come through. How easy is it to change your state? In 1 minute, you can change your state. And so there's certain breath techniques. I hopped in my pool this morning for literally 2 minutes. I didn't swim. I just bobbed up and down in the water. And so you could do it in a cold shower, end with cold for 30 seconds. It will wake up your whole system, pump you with dopamine that will last for 3 to 5 hours. You'll feel absolutely amazing. And don't try to warm up straight away. You want, and this is a whole other Joshua, but you want your body to naturally warm yourself up. And if you want to chat after about it, people have to go. But there's a whole long list of benefits, including feeling like you've never felt before. It activates your brown fat. We can tell you all about that. And it basically starts burning calories from the inside out. So your metabolic rate goes up. You'll lose weight. You'll feel great for hours. And it is so simple in 1 minute. Often, if you're feeling stuck, you have to move. So whether you go for a run or whether I often go into the garden and I have a walking meeting. Sometimes it's a meeting with myself, sometimes with someone else, but move. our bodies are wired for movement. The more we stuck in our meetings, meeting upon meeting upon meeting, the more our brain slows down, our creativity stops, and we become stale. Times that by 300 days and know how you feel, right? So the trick is respiration, how you work with your breath. You're going to have to come find out for yourself. Perspiration, how you use your body to change the chemistry in your brains. So behavior is king and your daily habits. The next one is intimacy, not for this talk. And then how do we use both music? So when you walked in here and you heard the music and smelled the coffee and all that, how did you feel? Music is such a lifting way to change your state. And then the last bit is substance. And that could be from taking magnesium right through to microdosing, macrodosing, all the good stuff. And so that is the stack. And when you do it, if you just did one of them, if you just hopped in the pool this morning or hopped on your bike, that's great. If you put on to fit in, then hopped in the pool, then had that latte, chai latte, and then you meditated or did some breath work, and then popped a little something for the road, and then came here, you call that the stack. And what you get from the stack is an exponential improvement in productivity and how you feel. And it would last for hours. And so the thing is, naturally, we wake up, we check our phones. The second you check your phones, your day is gone. You no longer have agency over your day. If you don't make space for yourself in those first few minutes or your first hour, or you've got to break that up during the day, if you don't own your first few minutes, you don't have control over your day, and you already start that feeling of, I'm not in control. And so own your first few minutes. Don't check your phone. Choose what you want to do that works for you. Stack it. If you get wobbly during the day, don't get thrown off the seat. If you do, find your way back in the day. And here's the last thing. What is the most potent performance drug out there? You don't need a prescription from your psychiatrist for it.
Sun.
Air is one of them. Sun is definitely an enhancer. Sleep. If you get a good night's sleep, and I'm not saying in hours, I'm saying in quality, you will crush it the next day. But how hard is it to get a good night's sleep? So the last bit in terms of high performance, and it's a quick thing, is you have to work out. So if your in-breath is the accelerator, your out-breath is the brake. That's an expression of life, and that's happening real time. It's fluid. What we do the whole day at work is the accelerator the whole day. Then suddenly you get into bed and you take your foot off the accelerator, but the engine is still idling at 5,000. And so if you don't work out a routine to descend, think of yourself as a plane. If you don't work out a healthy routine for descent, you might sleep, but your brain is going to be frazzled. And by Tuesday, by Wednesday, Thursday, basically like emotional roadkill. So if you don't work out your descent, you're not going to have a great night. And then the next morning is going to just be harder to hack up your engine and get going and crush it.
So, I mean, you've just told us how important sleep is. Yet you've made sure none of us sleep during your talk. I think this has been like, wow, absolutely wow. And I think a message, one of the first things I wrote down as you were talking, and it kind of came through all the way through, I could have written the same thing again, is an important thing that you said is connect with people. Almost like the solution for most things is connect with people. and then everything else. We've run way over time. I don't know if has anyone got burning questions? I'm sure you've got burning questions. Anyone got a question that you really want to ask before we end the session?
Are you wired for connection or are you wired for protection? Just ask yourself.
And I just want to say, like, on that connection note, like, what's so interesting is from your very beginning, your network was golden. And like, I also, like, my network is my everything. And from the beginning, from the days of like the best step or whatever, that's what you use all along. There's like a dot on your map there. There's always someone that you stepped out of your box to go and ask or connect with or whatever. Besides the resilience and the like quiet confidence, I think that's what's resonated most for me, is how important it was to your journey to where you are today.
Yeah.
And yeah.
You know what the interesting thing is? You're absolutely right. And in my kind of second season, in the other stuff that I offer, it is just flowed and come so easy. And when I ask my network, like, how come it's like flowing so easy? They say, well, you've been the kind of person that always connects and has the best intentions of mind in the connection. You're not someone who's like just trying to squeeze the fruit out of the relationship. You've just built such strong networks that when you do ask something, everyone wants to help because you've always been helping others.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, you know, all the times that you were being rejected, like, how did you deal with that? And then the other side of it is, how did you have the confidence to keep going forward?
So it helped a lot to have a partner. And my partner, I would say, in the first year pulled me through because my rejection muscle, I had a bit of dystrophy or atrophy. I don't know which the right word is. It's something you've got to build, that thick skin. And it almost became a sport. Like practicing, like, is it 20-0 today or is it 22? Like, could we get something on the board? And that feeling of not taking it personally and reframing it in a way that it's either not now, it's nothing personal, it's not what they're after. You actually want the clarity. You don't want people to string you along. It's even worse. And they say, yeah, let's talk next month, You actually want the no or the yes, but yes, not now, or no, not now. And it became less of an issue in the reframing. What's the second question?
About how you have the confidence? Because is it just an innate confidence that you have, or is it something you had to work on?
So I've always been, it's quite interesting because my one daughter's like this, is actually not confident in something until I become good at it. But it just felt at the time I could do this. And like I said, in my drop down, no or quitting is not an option. Like, even if I'm limping through to the finish, I'll finish. Like, I don't, this notion of no is not an obstacle.
Okay, so I mean, it's an innate thing. It's not something you learn.
No, but you have to learn and reframe the whole time because, geez, we get rejected so often. And if that's one of your wounds, it's like, I have an abandonment wound. What I have, what's part of the diet in this world? Betrayal, rejection, abandonment, all that ugly stuff. So, you know, this is the therapy room. My favorite sessions where I call the morning routine. It's just incredible because right now in your current state, you're currently seeing the world through the lens of your emotional state. But what happens if you can reset that state to that feeling where you can strip away all that stuff and feel the truest version of yourself? If I had to like put a ping for the future, because it's always important to tell people where you think things are going in your world, because that actually helps the manifestation process. Is while this place makes a huge amount of impact and impact that we don't even know, I think in life, the way the world is going, and it's moving so fast and chaotic, we will be doing multiple things in our time. So you're going to have to learn how to change and switch up careers as things become obsolete, or you may not be making enough money, or whatever it is, you're going to switch up your career. I think what you've spoken, Joe, about connection has been really good for me. Also sharing my story and trying to work out every piece of my puzzle. You'll never work it all out, but adding pieces to my puzzle as I share it, and I embody it, so I attract people in my world that want to do that. But I think my story is leading towards eventually setting up center or centers for frazzled, burnt out leaders to get to the bottom of their stuff and really work out their next season. So a burnout center or centers using all the modalities that I know, bringing other experts in so that leaders can deal with their stuff.
So I think that's a great place to end, and saying that it's for frazzled leaders, which leads back to the book that you got.
Yeah.
That was called Stealing the Fire, or Stealing Fire, which kind of the message comes through. I think it's incredible.
Yeah. And just a personal plug, is that at the back, should you wish, if any of this was remotely interesting and you want to learn a bit more about, you've heard my story, but there's more in there, but also the importance. If you're a parent, if you're in a business that has 18 to 25-year-olds as customers, and you want to learn about what's about them, how to market to them, to how they're changing the world, and how you need to position yourself for that. My book is at the back. So if you want it, it's there. You can purchase it. But otherwise, thank you very much. I'll hang around for some questions. But for those who need to run, thanks for coming.
I'm David Zidel, and I look forward to seeing you next time in the boardroom.